Have you ever prayed for an opportunity, a breakthrough, or a blessing, and wondered why nothing seems to be happening? You keep asking. You keep believing. You keep waiting. But every door you hoped would open stays closed. If that's where you are today, this message is for you. Because what if those closed doors aren't a sign that God has forgotten you? What if they're actually proof that He's preparing something far greater than you can see? Stay with me until the end, because today we'll discover why God often changes the person before He changes the situation. And once you understand this truth, waiting will never look the same again. But before we continue, take just a second to support this message. Click the like button, subscribe to Heavenly Messages of Hope, and help this message reach someone who may be wondering why God hasn't answered their prayers yet. Now let's begin. One of the biggest mistakes we make is believing that God's greatest miracle is opening a door. But many times, the greatest miracle happens long before that door ever opens. It happens inside us. We naturally focus on what we're asking God to do. Lord, give me the opportunity. Open this door. Change my circumstances. But God often has a different priority. Before He entrusts us with something greater, He prepares us to carry it. Think about it. A blessing received too early can become a burden instead of a gift. An opportunity without wisdom can quickly become a problem. Success without character rarely lasts. That's why God's preparation is never punishment. It's protection. Sometimes we're asking God to change our future, while He's patiently working to change our heart. Because He knows something we often forget. The person you become is more valuable than the blessing you receive. And once that truth settles into your heart, you'll stop seeing every delay as a disappointment. Instead, you'll begin asking a different question. Not, God, why are you making me wait? But, Lord, what are you preparing inside me while I wait? That single question can completely transform the way you walk through this season. And maybe that's exactly the question God has been waiting for you to ask. There is a powerful pattern all throughout the Bible. Before God entrusted someone with a greater purpose, He first prepared them in private. One of the clearest examples is Joseph. As a young man, Joseph received a dream from God. It was a beautiful promise. One day, people would look to him for leadership. But what happened next wasn't promotion. It was the opposite. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison. If Joseph had judged God's plan only by his circumstances, he could have easily believed the dream was over. But it wasn't. Because while Joseph was waiting, God wasn't wasting time. He was building a man who could one day carry enormous responsibility. Think about it. If Joseph had become ruler immediately after receiving the dream, would he have had the wisdom, the patience, or the humility to save an entire nation during a famine? Probably not. The prison wasn't where God abandoned Joseph. It was where God prepared him. Every difficult season taught him something. Every disappointment shaped his character. Every closed door pushed him closer to the right one. And maybe that's exactly what's happening in your life today. You've been praying for one opportunity, one relationship, one answer, one breakthrough. But God may be doing something much deeper. He may be strengthening your faith, teaching you patience, helping you trust Him instead of relying only on what you can see. Because the blessing you're asking for will eventually require the person God is shaping you to become. If you're still watching, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Leave your country or city in the comments below. It's amazing to see how God is bringing people from all over the world together through these messages of hope. Never forget this. Preparation often feels invisible. But invisible doesn't mean unimportant. Sometimes, the greatest work God is doing is the work no one else can see. And one day, when the right door finally opens, you'll realize God wasn't delaying your blessing. He was preparing you to keep it. Here's something we don't often think about. Not every open door comes from God. And not every closed door is a disappointment. Sometimes, the greatest act of God's love is saying not yet. Or even, no, because He can see what we cannot. We usually see today's opportunity. God sees where that opportunity will lead 5 years from now. We see what looks exciting. God sees what will strengthen or weaken our faith. That's why trusting Him isn't always easy. There are moments when an opportunity seems perfect. Everything appears to line up. Yet somehow, the door remains closed. At first, that can be incredibly frustrating. You may even wonder if you did something wrong. But later, sometimes much later, you realize that the closed door protected you from something you never saw coming. How many times have you looked back on your life and thanked God for a prayer He didn't answer? Maybe it was a relationship, a job, a decision you were convinced was right. At the time, you couldn't understand why God said no. Today, you thank Him for it, because His wisdom reached far beyond your understanding. That's why Proverbs reminds us to trust in the Lord with all our heart, and not lean on our own understanding. Faith doesn't mean knowing every detail of God's plan. Faith means believing that His plan is still good, even when you can't see it. Sometimes God closes one door because He's leading you toward the one that truly belongs in your life. The difficult part is that we usually don't recognize the right door until we've walked away from the wrong one. And that's where patience becomes so important. Not passive waiting, but confident waiting. The kind of waiting that says, God, I don't understand everything you're doing, but I trust that you're leading me exactly where I need to be. That kind of faith changes everything. Because instead of living with anxiety, you begin living with expectation. Not because you know when the door will open, but because you know the one who holds the key. And when you truly believe that, waiting no longer feels like wasted time. It becomes part of the miracle itself. There's another powerful example that reminds us how God prepares people before He changes their circumstances. Think about David. Long before he became king, he spent years as a shepherd. It wasn't a position that attracted attention. Most people probably overlooked him. But God didn't. While David cared for sheep in the fields, God was quietly building courage, character, and unwavering trust. No crowds, no throne, no applause, just ordinary days that were preparing him for an extraordinary future. It was during those hidden years that David learned to depend completely on God. He faced lions. He faced bears. He learned that victory didn't come from his own strength, but from the one who fought beside him. Later, when he stood before Goliath, everyone else saw an impossible battle. David saw another opportunity to trust the God who had already been preparing him. The giant wasn't the beginning of David's story. It was simply the moment when everyone else finally saw what God had been building all along. And that's an important reminder for us. We often pray for the public victory. God begins with the private preparation. We celebrate the open door. God values the person walking through it. Maybe you're in one of those hidden seasons right now. It feels like nothing important is happening. Your prayers seem unanswered. Your progress feels slow. But don't underestimate what God is doing when no one else is watching. Because the strongest faith is usually built in the quietest seasons. One day, people may only see the blessing. They'll see the opportunity, the breakthrough, the answered prayer. but they won't see the countless moments when God was patiently shaping your heart. Those unseen moments are what make the blessing possible. So don't rush the process. Don't compare your timeline to someone else's. The right door doesn't open because we're impatient. It opens when God's perfect timing meets a prepared heart. And when that moment comes, you'll realize something beautiful. God wasn't simply leading you to a blessing. He was transforming you into someone who could faithfully live inside it. Before we finish today, I want you to hold on to one truth. If God hasn't opened the right door yet, it doesn't mean He has forgotten you. It doesn't mean your prayers have been ignored. And it certainly doesn't mean His promise has changed. It simply means His work in you isn't finished yet. One day, you'll look back at this season, at every closed door, every delay, every moment when you wondered if God was listening, and you'll realize those weren't wasted years. They were the years that prepared you for everything that came next. Because God's greatest blessings are rarely given to people who are simply ready to receive them. They're given to people who have been prepared to carry them. So if today you're feeling discouraged, don't give up. Keep praying. Keep growing. Keep trusting. Even when nothing seems to be changing. Because every day you continue walking with God, He is doing something inside you that no one else can see. Your character is becoming stronger. Your faith is becoming deeper. Your heart is becoming more like His. And when the right door finally opens, you won't have to force it. You won't have to chase it. You'll recognize it. Because peace will walk through that door before you do. The Bible reminds us in Isaiah 60 verse 22. When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. Not when we demand it. Not when we think we're ready. But when His perfect timing and His perfect purpose come together. That promise is still true today. And it's true for you. So before this video ends, I'd love to hear from you. What door are you trusting God to open in your life? Leave a comment below. Our community prays for one another every single day, and your story could encourage someone who's walking through the very same season. If this message strengthened your faith, please take a moment to like this video. Subscribe to Heavenly Messages of Hope if you haven't already. And share this message with someone who may be wondering why God hasn't opened the door they've been praying for. You never know. One simple share could become the answer to someone else's prayer today. Thank you for spending these moments with me. May God fill your heart with peace, give you patience while you wait, and remind you every single day that before He opens the right door, He is preparing you for the blessing ahead. I'll see you in the next message. God bless you.